Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's an absolute pleasure to be here this evening in conversation with the incredible India man himself, Mr. Amitabh Kant. I'm not going to bore you with statistics on where India's tourism sector lies and what's happening with industry. You're best placed to know those numbers, and I'm sure that you know them much better than I do. But what I do want to talk to Mr. Kant about is what we're seeing happen in the world today and its implications and its impact for sectors like tourism, specifically for an economy like India as well. We are in a state of geopolitical flux. There is volatility undeniably. And what does all of that mean for India, for its economy and for its tourism sector? Mr. Kant, without further ado, while it doesn't directly impact India's tourism sector, there is a mood, there is confidence. All of those things are important contributors to the consumptive capacity, to the consumptive power of an economy. As you look at the volatility that we're seeing in the world today, as you look at the geopolitical dynamics that are playing out, we're talking about incredible India from a tourism perspective. How incredible is India from a global viewpoint when we talk about tourism today?
So Shireen, let me say that, the world is in a state of flux. India is being tested. But every crisis is also an opportunity. And we should not let this opportunity slip. We should really use this opportunity to galvanize ourselves to bring in radical reforms. And I think it's a once-in-a-generation opportunity to really make ourselves very easy and simple, to bring out radical reforms in all sectors of our economy, make ourselves very competitive, and make India a very key driver of global growth. So this is, to my mind, a massive opportunity for reforms. We should use this opportunity to make our GST very simple, just 2 slabs. We should use this opportunity to simplify our personal tax. We should use this opportunity to remove a lot of quality control orders that we have put in and actually impacted trade liberalization. We should use this opportunity to reduce taxes on inputs and components so that we become an integral part of global value chains. And we should use this opportunity to clean up our cities so that, we become a great travel and tourism destination. And we should use this opportunity to drive tourism simply because there is no other sector to beat Trumpian tariff than travel and tourism. So if India wants to compensate for the 50% tariff, which is envisaged to be put after 20 days, make your tourism grow. It'll more than compensate for the Trumpian tariff. This is the sector. This is a sector which can really, really drive India's growth story in the coming years. Not merely growth story, but this is a sector which can create jobs for India. So growth with jobs will come from travel and tourism.
Well, the big headline there from Amitabh Kant that tourism is the answer to offset the Trumpian tariffs, as he called them. But Mr. Kant, let's talk about that. In 20 days, if nothing changes, then India is going to be hit with a 50% tariff. Now, you talked about competitiveness. Where does that leave India's competitiveness? And what can be done to offset the impact of that tariff? I understand trade diversification. We're also talking to the EU. We're talking to other countries as well at this point in time. But, in the list of priorities, in the order of priorities, what should we focus on to ensure that we don't lose competitiveness once we are hit with those 50% tariffs, if we are hit with those 50% tariffs?
So Shireen, first and foremost, there's lack of, what Trump has done is he's brought absolute unpredictability and inconsistency to trade policies across the world.
Yeah.
He did 25% with Canada one day, next day he did 35%. He put tariff on China. Today's administrative order has stayed.
A 90-day pause again.
90 days pause. So across the world, for a private sector entrepreneur, he doesn't know where to export from. For a textile exporter, whether he should be exporting from Cambodia, Vietnam, Hong Kong, or India, he doesn't know. It's difficult to work out the tariff rates, and where to invest is even more difficult. So absolute unpredictability and inconsistency of policy. And I think none of us know the response to what it will be 20 days later. So first and foremost, pharma gets exempted.
Yeah.
Electronics gets exempted. What gets hit is textiles, seafood, etc., etc. But I am quite hopeful that India should be able to arrive at a win-win situation with the United States at the end of 20 days. These are strong-arm negotiating tactics which are being worked out as they've been done with many other countries. The only country, actually, if you look at it, in terms of negotiation, the only countries which have not buckled under pressure is China
And Brazil.
and
Brazil.
UK.
Well, UK's got a deal.
UK got a very good deal, 10%.
Yeah.
The only other country, Brazil's got a 50% duty. And India. So I think one thing I'm very clear about is that India should not succumb. India should not compromise on its strategic autonomy, because if you compromise now on your strategic autonomy, you'll keep succumbing. And you need to hold firm on this, because you may lose this battle, but you have to win the long-term war. It's very important to win the long-term war. And the long-term war is that 25 years it's taken you to build up a relationship with the United States. It's also important to understand for all of us that United States is the only country in the world which actually holds 26% of the global GDP, 48% of the market capitalization with 4% of the market share. So it's an important market, but it's there was bipartisan support for India throughout for last 2.5 decades. So I think Trumpian policy for a short while may upset it for a short while, but we must look at winning the war over a long period of time.
Well, speaking of winning the war, Mr. Kant, and I want to go back to your point about you believe this is the opportunity for India to go forward with big-ticket reforms. My first question to you, why do we wait for a crisis to do big-ticket reforms? Everyone's saying that this is like a 1991 moment. Why does India wait for a crisis to reform? Number one, is that a bureaucracy problem? Is it a political will problem? What exactly is the issue there? And two, again, when we talk about what India can do at this point in time, a two-rate structure for GST, I mean, the hotel industry would be very, very happy if that were to happen, but is that practical? Is it feasible? Is it doable?
So it's not that India has not carried out reforms. In the last decade, we were amongst the fragile five. From fragile five, we moved to the top 5 economies. We are now the 4th largest economy and probably will be the 3rd largest economy. We've been able to do it because we introduced GST, IBC, RERA. We did ease of doing business. We did many, many things to be able to, and on top of that, we push for digitization in our economy. We push for a greening of our economy. We push for large-scale infrastructure creation. We are amongst the few countries which have been able to provide houses, water connections, electricity. So a lot of things have happened. It's not. But to manage a country of 1.4 billion people, which is bigger than 24 countries of Europe, and to push for hard-ticket reforms needs some kind of a crisis. I mean, you need crisis to get everybody together, to galvanize. This is a moment for galvanization. This is a moment of a once-in-a-generation opportunity. This is a moment to ensure that you become the most competitive economy in the world. I mean, and that requires a huge amount of reforms. So use this opportunity. Every crisis is an opportunity. Use it to your advantage.
Okay, so in the list of, you've already said GST rationalization, GST rate rationalization is one big ticket item on the pending reform agenda. What would the other top 4 items be?
So provide 20,000 crores to the tourism industry to go and promote and penetrate global markets.
20,000 crores.
20,000 crores. Nothing less than 20,000 crores. This is the sector which will more than compensate for Trumpian tariff across any other sector. penetrate every single global market with a brand campaign which will get you tourists from across the world. Nothing less than 20,000 crores. For a large country like India, it will transform India, it will transform, you need to do several things. The budget had announced 1 lakh crore for urban revival, for cities to compete for that. We should push for that because you need to clean up your cities, but minimum 20,000 crores for the tourism industry so that you can do the best brand campaign on Incredible India across the world, penetrate every single global markets, get the rich and famous to visit India, attack Trump with travel and tourism.
Attack Trump with travel and tourism. 20,000 crores is what you're asking for. Why haven't we seen a new Make Incredible India campaign, Mr. Kant? You're talking about 20,000 crores for the industry to be able to market the India story globally. Why haven't we seen an Incredible India 2.0 so far?
No, I don't have an answer for all the problems and all the challenges of India. But I really feel that you need, at this moment of time, you need to galvanize yourself to handle this challenge. You need to look at sectors which will drive India's growth story with job creation. So, the World Travel and Tourism Council has said that in travel and tourism industry in India can create 63 million jobs. Which sector can create 63 million jobs? No other sector can create 60. And politicians want growth with jobs. This is the sector which will create jobs for Indians.
The lament, though, from the industry is that even though industry status has been provided for, the reality on the ground is very different. There is no execution after that big ticket announcement. Now, that's where the problem is. The announcement is one thing. The execution roadmap and the deficit therein is the challenge. How do we address that?
So, Shireen, my view is that the tourism industry must go to every single chief minister. The faith must go and actually go to every single chief minister and bring out the significance and importance of this. They should also go to the prime minister and tell him that we are going to give you, for your 20,000 crore spend, we are going to make up for all other sectors as far as this challenge of United States is concerned. And I think they should seek led by Mr. Puneet Chhatwal as the chairman of FAITH, they should go and meet Prime Minister directly and give him a 5-page note saying that we'll more than compensate. This is a challenge which the travel and tourism industry takes, subject to 1, 2, 3 things that we want from the government. That's all. And I think everybody is in favor of travel and tourism. Prime Minister has gone on record so many times to actually promote travel and tourism himself. He's a great believer. But the domestic tourism has done its bit. We could handle all this during the COVID period because the domestic tourism took off. But domestic tourism beyond a point will not sustain it in the long haul. You need international tourism to grow and expand. You have the airports. You have now the airlines coming in. When I was a joint secretary in the Ministry of Tourism, we neither had the airlines, we neither had the airport. We launched the Incredible India, which led to a huge upsurge and led to the creation of many airports. But now you have Indigo, you have Air India, you have Emirates, you have many airlines flying in. You have the best of airports. This is the time really to go international in a big way, and in the long run, use this domestic tourism as a springboard for driving international tourism.
You're talking about driving international tourism, Mr. Kant, and I know we've spoken about this previously, and I'm sure this audience has addressed this issue as well. But when we talk about competitiveness, how do you make Indian tourism competitive? You keep hearing anecdotal stories as well as hard data on how people are willing to go to Vietnam, people are willing to go to Thailand, numbers which are significantly higher than the tourists that India draws. How can India's tourism industry make itself more competitive?
So I don't think we should get into the numbers game, Shireen. I mean, the point is that India is
high-value customers.
So 2 things. One is that India is a long-haul destination. The people who come to India spend the longest number of days here. The highest number of days spent is in India. Number 2 is that don't go in for garbage tourism. Go in for high-value tourism. Go in for people who want to come. These are the days of experiential tourism. People want to experience India its culture, its heritage, its architecture. Go in for people who are willing to spend that money. Don't become the lowest common denominator. That's my view on this.
Okay.
Get people who are going to experience India, travel across India, spend about 20, 21 days across India, and really get a feel for India.
You know, if we are going to be able to draw in the high value, high paying customer to India and really experience India for what it is, what do we need to prioritize now, especially when we talk about our cities? I know that you've previously spoken about the need for hygiene, for safety, security, and so on and so forth. You know, this urban renewal plan that you spoke about, this has been something that's been in place and in play for several years now. Yet, we are seeing civic bodies, civic authorities across our cities fail in keeping our cities safe, secure, as well as clean. What do you believe is the priority at this point in time that civic bodies, along with state governments, need to focus on? And we cannot leave this to the court, as we've just seen in the case of Delhi with the stray dogs issue.
So, you know, I've been a long-term believer that actually there are two sectors which need a massive impetus by both the states and the center. Tourism also needs a massive push by the states because you need to create state brands. You need about 20 state brands. Every state has to understand that tourism is going to create jobs for them, not just Rajasthan and Kerala, but every state of India needs to create the tourism brand, and Incredible India has to be the mother brand. Similarly, on the urban rejuvenation, my belief is that cities are the biggest drivers of growth. They are the biggest cities become the center for innovation. They become the center for all creativity. They become the centers for biggest job creation. And therefore, a huge amount of, focus on urbanization. The municipal standards have to improve. The garbage management has to improve. The segregation of waste has to improve. And, states have to understand that it's not merely the focus on rural India, but urbanization will be the biggest driver of growth in the coming years. The more money you spend on agriculture, actually, 46% of India is already in agriculture. You need to get them out into urban areas to create new quality jobs. That can only happen through urban. So the budget had a very good scheme. 1 lakh crore for urban rejuvenation, create competition. I think we need to get that implemented ASAP.
I want to go back where we started because we've got a couple of minutes before we close. And you believe that India can still arrive at a win-win deal with the US, and you believe that there needs to be outreach at this point in time between both sides. There needs to be an engagement. But whether we have 25% or 50% tariffs, whether we have a deal or not eventually, Mr. Kant, one aspect that is crucial to kind of ponder over is trust, and whether the events of the last few weeks have damaged trust irrevocably on our side, and what that portends then for the strategic partnership that we have.
So, India had bipartisan support. Democrats and Republicans worked very hard with India. Last 2.5 decades, we won the trust of United States of America, and I think full support from both sides. And to my mind, what has now been done, this lack of consistency of policy will damage trust forever. The trust of Indians in the United States will be lost forever.
You're talking about trust. China, there is a thawing in the relationship, the economic engagement between India and China at this point in time. Both sides are trying to do business with each other. India has just removed the measures on visas. Now visas are being given out to Chinese tourists and so on and so forth. Do you believe that there is need for greater engagement with China in the midst of the backdrop that we just spoke of?
So, Shireen, it's important to understand, and I think everybody sitting here must read this new book, Apple in China. And what it demonstrates is that actually it was not, while Apple started manufacturing in China, it really transformed China. But what it really led to is all the top companies of America doing manufacturing and outsourcing from China. into the United States because they became globally very competitive. But the important thing is that, you know, they were doing from components, all the component manufacturing, which is important for value chains, was being done there. You know, all inputs were being manufactured there. Now, for India to become a great manufacturing nation with greater value addition, you need to quickly leapfrog, and that can only be done by partnering with China. So I'm a believer that India needs to do joint ventures with China. India needs to do joint ventures for components. India needs to do joint ventures on a range of inputs which go into manufacturing. We need to bring down the input and component manufacturing right on, strategically important. Because, you know, look at the history of China. China has had very adverse political relationship with Taiwan. It has had very adverse political relationship with Japan. But Japan and Taiwan have all invested in China. And I think we need to work with China, and we need to really rework out the Press Note 3 to enable India to work with China to become a great manufacturing nation. The manufacturing must move from China to India, and for that it's important that we work in our national interest.
That certainly is the aspiration and the hope that we move a lot of that manufacturing to India. And of course, the tariff issue and tariff uncertainty will play a part in that. But Mr. Kanta, before I let you go, what was the biggest learning for you from Incredible India? And what would you leave with this audience here as something that you believe must be kind of imbibed into the spirit of the next Incredible India? The big learning that you would like this audience to take forward in the next Incredible India campaign with the 20,000 crores, if the 20,000 crores happen.
So 3 lessons. One is never go by L1. You know, whenever you do 20,000 crores, never go by lowest cost.
A bureaucrat, a former bureaucrat saying don't go by L1. Mr.
Never
Kant.
go by L1, go by quality come cost. Number 2, work with the best creative director in India. Work with the best. Never compromise. Never work with the second best. Work with the best who will create the best campaign for you. Never go by L1. And third, always consult the private sector of the travel and tourism sector. These are 3 lessons. And the fourth, I'll go a step forward.
You can
when
do
you
5.
Get the
You can do 5 also.
No, the fourth is when you get the 20,000 crores, create a tourism board which will be driven by the private sector of India and not by the government.
Well, the top 4 lessons there from Amitabh Kant, who spent his life in government. And, you know, as a bureaucrat, you know, we still go by this L1 business. I mean, I remember once you said a rather controversial thing, too much of democracy. But, you know,
I said that.
Too much? Is India's problem too much of bureaucracy?
No, Shireen, I said that in the context of China. Somebody was trying to compare India with China. I said China is not a democracy. India is too much of a democracy. You can't compare India with China.
Yeah.
That's what I said.
But
journalists twist.
No, I'm not twisting. I think is India's problem too much of bureaucracy?
No. Well, I truly believe now the GFR has also been modified. The General Financial Rule permits you to do cost come quality. So we should select the best. But we should pitch for a really huge package for the travel and tourism industry to market and penetrate Incredible India worldwide.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, the indomitable Amitabh Kant, thank you so much for joining us here this evening.